In this series, we have been looking at how to create a brand new website using Bootstrap. In this video, we want to look at a new component, buttons. Now, we've looked at them just a little bit before, but we're going to look at them now. We're also going to look at them coming up in another video after we incorporate them into a form. So we don't have to use buttons in a form, but I'm going to show you both. So let's go ahead and get you started in seeing what it's like to create a button. So I'm going to come over here real quick, and I have my code. I'm going to create a button tag. And I'm just going to say button demo for right now. Now, this is without any classes. I just want to show you what does this look like inside of a web page that has Bootstrap, but does not do any styling with the button. If I come in here and reload it, you're going to notice that I have the button demo, and this looks like a regular HTML button. So we need to apply a couple of different tags to this in order to make this work for us. First up, I'm going to add a class attribute and add btn. Now, btn is just button. There's a little short for it. And I can do this, but when I do, notice that all my button styling goes away. This is because I need to add another class to give it styling. Now, if I want to have one of the Bootstrap style buttons, I need to add a second class. For example, btn-primary. Save that. When I reload, you're going to notice I automatically get a button using the primary color, whatever that's defined in. I'm using the default, so it's blue. And if I hover with my mouse on a desktop, you're going to notice that it's going to turn a slightly different color. Obviously, it's not going to do this on a mobile device, but it kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. So let's take a look at how we can do some other buttons and what it's going to look like. And I've added all the different types of buttons that Bootstrap is going to give us. Notice that we have btn-primary, -secondary, success, etc. I even have a couple of interesting ones I'm going to talk about in just a second. So I'm going to come over here and reload this. You can see what all these different look like. So all these are defined based upon the colors that are defined inside of Bootstrap. Remember, this is the default colors for Bootstrap. And I even have things like light and dark. So if I want to have a light colored theme or a dark colored theme, I can use something like that. And I even have the ability to say, hey, you know what? I don't want this to look like a button. I want this to look like a regular HTML link. So this gives me a couple of interesting things. Now, buttons, typically we find them in a form, but we don't have to. If they're not, we typically are going to have some sort of JavaScript attached to them. Well, what happens if I want to use it as a link? Well, I can actually use the anchor tag. Let me show you that real quick. I'm going to make this an anchor tag, and I'm going to add, instead of my type, we have href equals, and I'm just going to use the pound symbol. The pound symbol is going to be used because I'm not going to actually go anywhere. This is just a demo. I would replace this with whatever my hyperlink reference is going to be for where I'm going to go. Let me go ahead and replace all these real quick. So now I have these as anchor tags. Come over here, reload. And you notice they look exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever. The only thing I don't have is I don't have my link style tag because it is a link and so it's kind of redundant, right? So I can take and make any navigation I want look like a button. You might think, well, why is that important? Well, if you've ever been on a website and it has a button they want you to click on, sometimes they call it a call to action, order now, something like that. I can create a nice button for that, make it look the way I want to. They can click on it. It's actually a link. It takes me to a page I want to, whether it be the order form or registration form or whatever it is I want them to do. So the button is great, but my styles allow me to control how I want to use this. But Bootstrap actually gives us a couple different styles. Not just these, we could also have what some people refer to as a hollow or an outline button. Let me show you that real quick. Come back over here. I'm once again going to copy and paste my buttons. So instead of saying button-primary, I'm going to say button-outline-primary. So this becomes very easy, and I can do this once again for all of my different buttons. Reload this, and notice you can see all of my buttons. This gives a much more stark hover style effect when I hover over in my buttons. Now, I want to be very careful using the light button. You should notice the light button on a white background basically disappears. That's not very good. So these are things I have to be careful of. Once again, if I'm actually using a dark background, my dark button may not be real effective either. So I have to kind of think about how I'm using and doing my styles. And when I start styling the whole web page, this becomes something that I need to focus on more. But this gives you an idea of being able to look at some different types of buttons, either solid or outline. But Bootstrap goes a little bit further, and it gives us the ability to have either larger or smaller buttons. So let me show you real quick what that's going to look like. So I'm going to create these from scratch. I'm going to say button class btn btn-primary. Then I'm going to go btn-lg. Now, typically when we see something like LG, that's going to be for a break. In this case, it's for a sizing of my button, not the break size. What's nice is because this is an extra class that we apply to it, if we want something larger, I can use it for both my solid and my outline buttons. So I'm just going to copy and paste this button and do btn outline-primary. So you can see that side by side. Reload this, and you'll notice that my button has physically become larger. The text inside of it is bigger. It's got a little bit extra space. It's just making it so it stands out just that little bit extra. So this is where if we have that call to action, we want people to really see this. I say, hey, sign up for this free class or download this, new driver. I can put download or I can put sign up or purchase or whatever I want and really make it stand out. And that's great for those large buttons. I can do the exact same thing with a small button. So I'm going to come over here, create a new paragraph, button class btn-primary. Then I'll do btn-sm for small. Once again, this is small size, not a breaking point. And this is also going to look for my outline, so I'll do btn-outline-primary here. Just a quick copy paste so you can see it. And I reload. Once again, the text is smaller in size, so it's just a little bit easier to see and work with. So these are basics of how I'm going to start using my buttons. Now, there's obviously some more things I can do with it. And particularly, I'm going to look at adding the ability to do buttons for checkboxes and radio buttons in a form, as well as doing button groups. And I'm going to show you that after we look at forms, because I think it's important to see the forms first so we know how to incorporate the buttons inside of it. But this just kind of gives you a real quick overview of what creating these buttons in Bootstrap is like and how easy it is to do it. So hope you got a lot out of this. Stay tuned for our next video, which we're going to talk about the form components and how we create a basic form. And if you haven't seen the other videos in this playlist, you might want to check it out. It's up here on the screen as well.